Hey, I'm Sith King.
And I'm Sonic Sons.
And we're the Rambling Reviewers.
And today we're going to look at an episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Now, Deep Space Nine is not always looked upon the most kindly by other Star Trek fans, partially because it profanes the Roddenberry ideal of humans are superior always, and we are of superior morality and stuff.
I thought the Vulcans were kind of superior to us.
Well, yeah, but... But anyways, my personal opinion on this, it's the best of all the Star Trek series that I've seen.
Yeah,
so far.
I'm going to put my money on TNG, but I haven't seen a whole lot of Deep Space Nine.
That's because you're a filthy, filthy heretic.
Should have gone with Trogdolite.
Oh.
Wait, no, Tribble. What is Trogdolite? Tribbles are the Star Trek things. I gotta.
Trogdolite. I don't know either.
If I want to say it's somebody who likes Trogdor, but probably not.
Trogdor!
Okay.
Okay, the basic plot of Deep Space Nine is that it's located outside of a wormhole in a very politically active part of the galaxy. This wormhole leads to the opposite side of the galaxy, where, specifically the Gamma Quadrant, where a powerful empire known as the Dominion exists. The show really hits its stride when the Dominion tries to conquer the entire Alpha Quadrant, which pretty much takes up, I'd say, from Season 3 onward until the end of Season 7 when the show came to its end.
Okay.
Now, people didn't like it because it did question, many things. But the Season 6 episode is one that has been hotly debated to this day about, was Sisko right or not?
And were the writers right or not to put this sort of story into the Star Trek universe?
The episode we're talking about is In the Pale Moonlight.
Yes.
It's a Season 6 episode.
So near the end of this whole thing, actually, then.
Yeah. Some background information before this. There had been an earlier episode where a bunch of savants had come to Deep Space Nine to look over classified documents. And
eventually, yeah.
And they had predicted, using highly accurate computer models they had tested earlier, and had been proven to be right earlier.
How right had they been proven to be?
They predicted where the Dominion wanted to strike earlier. Wanted to negotiate for earlier.
That's true. But they hadn't predicted something like a year in advance.
Well, yes,
but their prediction, the point of the show.
Their prediction basically stated that if the war between the Federation and the other, between the Alpha Quadrant powers, meaning the Federation, the Klingons, the Cardassians... No, actually, no, not the Cardassians. The Federation, the Klingons...
Vulcans.
Well, they're part of the Federation.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, just
I always
Federation
think humans equals Federation.
Just the Federation and Klingons continued against the Dominion. It would end in a loss that would result in 900 billion casualties.
Yep.
It would take over 5 generations for the Alpha Quadrant to finally regain freedom.
Yeah. So their solution there was to surrender, and we would not have to have anybody die, and someday in the distant future, theoretically, we would have a rebellion and overthrow the Dominion.
Yeah, but that's not the point. It's Season 6, meaning that every week, it's Captain Sisko's job to go out into the mess and post new casualty reports from the front lines, showing this is who died this week against the Dominion.
Yep. Which is a lot of people.
And the Federation and its allies are losing.
Yep.
Badly.
Yep. So
he hatches a plan. Currently, the only powers fighting are the Federation and the Klingons, possibly a few minor powers that I can't recall at the moment.
Working together against the Dominion.
Yep. The Cardassians have already joined the Dominion, so there's no help from that front.
Yep.
But there's one major power in the area that still has maintained neutrality. The Romulans. Yep, those guys. The Vulcan-ish cousins to the Vulcans.
The Romulans.
Whatever, the Romulans. So Sisko wants to bring them into the war. So he talks to a tailor on the promenade of Deep Space Nine, who is actually an undercover Obsidian Order agent, basically the MI6 of Cardassia, but who is currently fighting for the good guys for reasons.
Yep.
Like, I won't get into Garrick's whole backstory here, just he's a secret agent who does unscrupulous things for good people.
Yep.
But anyways, so he says, I want to get the Romulans in on the war. How do we do this?
Mm-hmm.
And they formulate a plan.
Mm-hmm.
The plan basically involves falsifying a Dominion report that says, yeah, we're totally going to invade you, the Romulans. Ha 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 ha. We are so evil.
Mm-hmm.
Using several people as intermediaries.
Mm-hmm.
At the end, the end result is the most powerful pro-Dominion senator in the Romulan Senate is dead, assassinated by Garrick. The evidence, which didn't hold up to scrutiny before, is planted on him, suggesting that the Dominion killed him to keep this a secret.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who they worked with are now dead also, to keep the witnesses quiet.
Yeah, theoretically.
But in the end, the Romulans are now part of the war against the Dominion.
Yep.
I'm skipping over a lot here.
It's
Just, go watch the episode. I personally consider it one of the best episodes. But the thing we're debating here today was Sisko right? Was it okay to abandon Federation principles and ideals in order to assure that him and his friends and his family would continue to survive?
All right, well, let's go over a quick list of what he did there, because first he had to bargain to get this counterfeiter guy out of a jail where, let's presume, he belonged. He was going to be executed, actually.
Yes.
Then, when that guy stabs a dude in a bar, he has to pay off the dude who got stabbed, and please don't press charges. Then he has to, for a separate part of the plan, get a bunch of illegal biomass material, whatever it's called.
Biomimetic gel, which can be used, which is a highly restricted substance whose primary application is the creation of, biological weapons.
Yeah, so potentially he's just, giving somebody a weapon of mass destruction, though we can't be sure either way what the guy's going to do with it. Then he, lies to this Romulan, and then he doesn't order the guy to be assassinated, but Garrick takes, initiative and goes ahead and murders the guy along with all of his crew. So there's our list of sins, essentially. And theoretically, by doing that, we have saved 900 billion lives.
Yes. Theoretically.
Theoretically.
The war still goes on, and
right.
In the end, it turns out that the Dominion decides to stop trying to fight anymore because they got what they really wanted in this whole war.
What was that?
Odo, the changeling security guard.
I know he was a species member of the Founders, but did they seriously wage an entire war to get that one guy?
Not to get the one guy, but they quit once he says, okay, I'll return to you guys if you stop this war. And they go, sure. And then they stop the war.
I hope that makes more sense in context.
It probably does. I haven't seen that far yet.
Oh, you and your Wikipedia. Or TV Tropes is the case, maybe.
Oh, no. This was Memory Alpha, the Star Trek wiki.
Right, of course. Okay, that's why I stay away from these things unless I've seen the episode. But
it's not my fault that those links look so attractive. They call to me. Click on me. Know my secrets.
I totally just want to be like, hey girls, if you want a geek guy, dress in blue.
Must click.
Oh man. Okay.
But yes, were Sisko's actions correct?
So it's ambiguous, and that's the whole point of the episode, really, is to put him in a morally ambiguous situation that stays ambiguous to the end. It wasn't like a couple of times like Picard's been challenged on something, and then he finds like this perfect solution pretty much by the end of it. And this was, we still killed a man and possibly killed a whole bunch of people with that bioweapon stuff and subverted justice a couple of times.
And brought the Romulans into the war, leading to many Romulans dying as a result of our actions.
Yeah. So I would say the really key issue underlying everything is who deserves to win the war. Because if you imagine, let's say, the Alpha Quadrant powers were doing really well against the Dominion, and the Dominion pulled off some sort of parallel evil scheme type of thing to get more supporters on their side, would that be okay? And I would say, well, that depends. Are we exactly like the Dominion in this scenario? We're invading them, for the hell of it, because we're just evil conquerors? Or were they the ones conquering us, and now we're just, taking back our own turf? All matters of war and everything like that. Gandhi said once, the ends may justify the means so long as there is something to justify the ends. Because when people use that phrase, the ends justify the means, oftentimes the end is something like, and then I get what I want. And screw everyone else. Like, well, that's not cool. But if it's, and then the world as a whole is better, and in a definitive way, in a way we can show, then, okay, I guess, it worked out. However crazy your means were, if the net result is definitely positive, good for you. Which is not to say that Gandhi was fond of assassinating people, so he didn't take it quite that far.
That we know of.
That we know of.
Hey, the guy could have just been really careful about it. You see that guy? Fuck him. Fuck him and his family.
Right, but so yeah, it's all about just something justify the end. So what do we know about these respective people here?
Well, I'm assuming you know a lot about the Federation,
Yeah, generally nice folks.
The Dominion, okay, their main forces are comprised of the Founders, who are a shape-shifting, highly xenophobic race of conquerors. Well, not conquerors. Okay, they believe everything should fall into the pattern of everything should be orderly. Mm-hmm. Everything should be orderly. Otherwise, you could come and hurt us. They maintain control through their agents, I don't know what Wayun's race is, but like one of them is a race that is very similar to the possum. No, seriously, some people have actually worked it out that he's most similar to possums.
In what way is he like a possum? Because all I know is them hanging upside down, and I'm pretty sure that's a myth.
Ability to appear to come back to life after...
Oh.
Plus, they kind of look weaselly. I don't really know, but I kind of agree with them. They kind of look weaselly.
Okay, so the possum people, are they like slaves or what?
They're not 100% slaves, but they are all clones, so it's entirely possible. So it's heavily implied that all the Dominion's slaves and soldiers are genetically modified so that they view the Founders as gods.
So that is weird, isn't it? Because normally you're defining, okay, if this guy's free, it means he could leave if he wanted to. Now here's a guy who doesn't want to leave. Oh, I guess he's just a loyal soldier. Oh, but wait, we've specifically programmed his brain to not want to leave.
So how does that work out?
Us? Yeah.
And then there's the Jem'Hadar. Each one taller and tougher than a Klingon. You're able to grow one to full maturity in less than a week. And each one of them is a drug-obsessed homicidal maniac who is also obsessed with the Founders.
So kind of an Urukai then. The
special
orcs.
They're basically Urukai.
Yeah. Except for the drugs.
Yeah, so they have limitless numbers of... near limitless numbers of Jem'Hadar foot soldiers. Uh-huh. Incredibly powerful ships that are able to take out a Galaxy-class starship like the USS Enterprise D.
Wow, okay.
Huge numbers, and they are shown to give incredibly harsh punishments to those who do not obey their rule. Mm-hmm. At one point, we see a planet that has a horrible infection that is capable of killing everyone on the planet, but waits until they're of a certain age before it becomes fatal. The Dominion inflicted this upon them long ago. Long time ago, because they show the slightest hint of defiance.
Oh, that does not seem fair.
That does not seem fair.
All right.
The Dominion is also known to have captive populations make sure that, well, you do what they say.
Okay.
They also had a prison planet where you were incapable of dying. Or maybe that was a different one. I'm sorry. There are several hundred episodes of Star Trek. It's possible for a few details to get mixed up in my head.
Yeah.
They do not tolerate dissent. They do not tolerate worship of other gods. They're a theocratic group of xenophobic racists.
So it sounds bad overall. Okay, major violation of human rights. I'm just going to call them human rights. I guess you could say
sapient rights.
Sapient rights, yeah.
Or self rights.
Basic things of self-rule, the right to freedom of belief and expression, and non-slavery, and stuff like that. And there's some of the slavery things you sort of play around with the clone thing. How exactly does that count? But overall, very bad vibe coming from these people. And they came to our territory, right? I don't think we blew them up.
It's...
Tell me.
Okay, first things first. We did not know they existed when we first discovered the wormhole.
Right.
So we started exploring on the other side because, well, it's Star Trek and there's a brand new area of space. Yeah. You're not going to sit around wondering, hey, what's over there? Well, I guess I'm too busy. And the Bajorans, the planet who Deep Space Nine is in orbit over, started setting up a colony. Eventually, Sisko, Quark, Nog, and Jake decided to go camping on a planet in the Delta Quadrant. In the Gamma Quadrant. Delta Quadrant is Voyager, my bad. And they ran into Jem'Hadar, who took them prisoner and let them escape to give a message. Do not come over here again, or we will fucking kill you.
Did we come over there again?
We started severely limit... Actually, yes, very next episode. We were searching for the homeworld of the Dominion so we can negotiate with them. They also, without provocation, destroyed the colony of New Bajor.
Okay.
Totally without provocation, just because, hey, you're not supposed to be here.
Well, technically, that is provocation. It's not trespassing. But it would have been much more justified to talk to them and say, please move.
Indeed. So the Dominion came over and basically captured Sisko and the command crew of Deep Space Nine, which is main characters do everything, which I don't especially like, but it's a staple of Star Trek, so what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And basically had the Federation and all the major Alpha Quadrant powers become Dominion servants. This was a dream that they created just to see how they would react. And apparently they don't think that they and the Alpha Quadrant can react together, can exist together well, so they decide, yeah, we're going to start, preparing to conquer you. Have a good day!
Now, do they have travel to our quadrant besides the wormhole itself?
No.
Is there some reason we haven't nuked the wormhole?
Nuking the wormhole itself, it's because the wormhole is the home of the Prophets, a race of extra-dimensional entities who the wormhole is just like...
It's their house, basically.
Yeah, it just serves as a wormhole. That's just one aspect of it,
Yeah.
But they did put up a self-replicating minefield in front of the mouth of the wormhole. This was unfortunately completed only just after the Dominion had already gained a foothold in the Alpha Quadrant.
So the Dominion just gets part of their people over, and that is enough to put the entire quadrant on edge.
Well, you seem to forget that they already had... At this point, they already had an alliance with the Cardassians, who gave them birth, they gave them shipyards, and presumably also the facilities to create the drugs to keep their super soldiers intact, as well as probably places to birth said super soldiers.
Okay, so they came over to our territory and fricked us up because of a couple of pretty minor trespassing incidences. I mean, they control a whole quadrant, and we landed perfectly innocently, right? Once time to set up a colony in a place we thought was uninhabited, and secondly to go talk to them. So I don't think we deserve to be pwned here.
Correct.
And even if our leaders had done something terrible, I don't suppose all the civilians would deserve to be pwned in the meantime. Right? Which is one of the neat things at the end of World War II, by the way, where we pwned the Axis countries and then didn't conquer them. like, briefly occupied them, but then you set up their own governments with their own democracies and all that.
We did that with Japan, too. It was nice.
That's part of the Axis, yeah.
MacArthur Treaty.
Yeah, things like that. So yeah, I don't suppose they were planning to do that. We'll get rid of your leaders, and then you can have a democracy. Goodbye.
No, they were planning to move in, teach everyone that the founders were gods.
Yeah.
And
take away all of our freedom and happiness and pretty much everything we had.
Yeah, exactly.
So, as Garrick, his name is Garrick, right, was saying at the end of In the Pale Moonlight,
yes,
we possibly saved the whole quadrant, and all it took was the life of one diplomat and the self-respect of one Starfleet
one diplomat,
captain.
one murderer, and the self-respect of one Starfleet captain. Now, I think that, sir, is a bargain.
You've watched it more than once, haven't you?
Yes, I have. It's a really good episode.
It is. So so we know our ends are justified. Now the question only is, to what degree might we have found better means? Because if we can accomplish the same things without murdering a couple of people, that is better. The question is, how would we have done that? I mean, he, speculates just talking to the Romulans, but obviously they're aware of everything, and they've decided, screw it.
And they've been
trust the Dominion.
There have been Federation. By that point, Federation talks had been ongoing with the Romulans to bring them into the war for months and years. And part of the problem was that the Romulans had a non-aggression treaty with them, so the Dominion was able to go through Romulan space and attack Federation targets.
Right.
And the Romulans were still paranoid about the possibility of a Federation-Romulan war, which happened in between the time of Star Trek Enterprise and the original series.
So, yeah, that's something to worry them. Yeah, how exactly would you persuade them? He does, we should have mentioned, initially tries the route of, we'll get legit records of them plotting to take over Romulus. But, all of Garrick's men die in the attempt. So, never mind. And now it comes to to making the fake thing, which ran the risk of actually making the war worse, because the Romulans could become active aggressors against the rest of the Alpha Quadrant. But then again, what's worse than total ponage, right? We can get total ponage a little bit faster. Oh well.
The choice is... Personally, if the choice is between total annihilation and doing something unsavory, I will choose the unsavory tactic rather than annihilation.
But again, always keeping in mind what it is you're protecting. Because if...
I'm protecting my family.
I know. But I'm just saying, it's very important to do that, because a lot of people... as a matter of fact, the Dominion runs on a similar logic, just misapplied. They believe that if they don't pwn the Alpha Quadrant, they are in jeopardy. Now, it's not true, right? But wouldn't it be great if they thought it through and went, oh, wait, that's not true, so we are not justified in doing this, you see. Mm-hmm. You always have to do it. A lot of people have made a lot of moral mistakes throughout history by saying, oh, it's justified by such and such, and they haven't thought about it. Or someone is working for the evil empire, someone's working with, like, the Nazis or whatever, and saying, well, we need to do this to protect our nation. And then you go... Well, no, actually, my nation right now does not deserve any Goran protection, especially when the counter-invading forces are not planning to massacre all the civilians. They're just going to take out the leaders who have been massacring civilians recently. So actually, that's quite fair and justified of them to do. You must always be able to change your mind if you realize you're on the wrong side of things, if you're defending the wrong thing, or if the guy who screws someone else's career over so he can get, like, the big promotion, right? Like, that's not justified. That's just you being selfish. What the hell? But this, where clearly they're the aggressors, clearly they're going to do a hell of a lot of damage, which is unjustified, including the civilians who had no, concept of anybody even trying to colonize their turf or anything like that. We've modeled it in advance for whatever that's worth. 900 billion people are going to die, less if we surrender, but still, surrender would suck too. And we have no other less savory way of getting this done then I guess, we have to go about this way. And then it becomes a question of, okay, how can we make sure to do it right so it doesn't backfire and somehow make everything worse, you know?
And they covered their tracks pretty well, I have to say. Garrick murdered the criminal who was responsible for, well, creating the Holo program.
Yeah.
He got his hands on an optolithic data rod, which only Cardassians and the Dominion, since they absorbed Cardassia, use. Yes, they did happen to give an insane, possibly a crazy man, access to the way to create biogenic weapons.
Right. So, you know what they should be doing in the immediate aftermath of this episode is track down that guy if all possible. You know, put all points bullets on the Federation. Anybody that has reason to buy this shit, go find him now, please. This is an important part, too, of the morality. You have to do every little calculation, you know. And personally, I wouldn't have murdered the guy that made the counterfeit. I'd say, look, obviously we can't risk him getting out and spreading the word, but let's put him in jail, where he was to begin with.
So,
actually.
indefinite detention.
Which would be terrible. It would be a terrible thing to do. To save 900 billion lives, to definitely save all those millions of lives, I could see that. Now, tricky thing, because a lot of times people have misapplied that crap in the real world, especially you bring up indefinite detention. There's been a whole lot of instances of our government, the United States, throwing people in jail, and they're not even freaking guilty. Like, we got the wrong man. And this comes up later when we do a habeas corpus review after, like, years of stalling. And, oh, hey, wait, no, there's a guy with a similar name. Never mind. Like, you have to be so freaking sure whenever you do anything in this unsavory area and it's justified in some way, do the freaking math and double check everything, because you could easily cause unjustified pain.
But at the same time, if we put this guy in indefinite detention, then what will happen is that he's going to build resentment towards the Federation, meaning he might go to the Romulans and say, hey...
How is he going to go to the Romulans? He's in jail.
Once he's let out.
Oh, well, yeah.
So you have to hold him indefinitely.
Still better than killing him, and perhaps we could let him out someday, and you know, as we do so, admit the whole thing. Obviously, we'd have to be in a position that somehow that would work out. There's a tricky thing with this.
So possibly, like in the aftermath of the destruction of Romulus, when the Federation is far stronger than the Romulan remnant.
Did we destroy Romulus in this thing?
No, in the main Star Trek universe, that's how Star Trek 11 to Star Trek 2009 starts, with Romulus being destroyed and Spock going back in time.
Yeah,
that's how it starts. That was in the main Star Trek universe that Romulus was destroyed.
Thing. As soon as possible, as soon as you can do so without damage beyond embarrassment and that sort of crap, which, you know, people protect their pride more so than they need to, you should admit to what you've done and apologize. You know, like, there's been several abuses committed by our country. The one I just named, we got the wrong guy in indefinite detention. Also, even if you have the right guy, what's the problem of putting him to a trial to make sure he's the right guy? I'd also like to point out how little a threat terrorism poses compared to, say, nuclear holocaust we've been facing down before, the March of the Axis, or, yeah, in this case, the Dominion. Like, the existential threat. As opposed to, okay, 20,000 people die of gun violence in our country every year, and some, 100 die of terrorism, and we put completely different standards on this one because it's, more flashy or something. You have to think this through.
I guess in the Star Trek universe, you can make it extremely humane to keep people in indefinite detention by putting them in, a holo cell. It's like a holodeck, except it's, well...
you can't get out, yeah. There is no computer getting you out.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want. You can live a life of sin. You can like the life you're living. You can live the life you like. You can even marry Harry or mess around with Ike. And that's good, isn't that grand, isn't that great, isn't that swell, isn't that fun, isn't that and hot living, it's gonna... Okay.
I don't know this song.
It's from Chicago.
I haven't seen Chicago.
Fourth favorite musical of all time. But,
all right.
A hollow prison could work equally well.
Could be more humane. Yeah, not equal. Well, yeah, it's more better than some alternatives. But yeah, you see how these sorts of things are very naturally corruptive. You're always in this case of, oh, what if I do this evil thing, I could accomplish this other good thing. And I think it happens a lot in politics and our day-to-day things to the point where you really start losing your standards and you wind up doing corrupt things that really weren't justified at all, but you're so used to corruption by this point, and that's terribly dangerous. I'll give you an analogy. People have asked sometimes, okay, suppose there's like 10 people on a lifeboat after a ship sank, and they have water, but they don't have food. And they get very hungry, and they're about to starve, right? And so someone thinks...
You throw a corpse over the side, and when the sharks come up, you punch the shark to death and eat the shark.
That would be interesting. But the more general option is to, slit someone's throat, and everyone could be a cannibal and eat them, and they could survive. Yeah. And someone would say, okay, is that justified or not? And I'd say, okay, well, it's kind of hard. It depends on, first off, how long can you live without more food? Wouldn't it be terrible to slit the guy's throat and then like, oh, it's a rescue ship. Crap timing.
It was a shark with a knife.
And the
knife shark.
Exactly how important is it to avoid, murder versus keeping ourselves alive and things like that. But I'll say this. Regardless of how you fare on whether a person should be killed, assume for the moment someone is killed, and then the people survive and they're rescued, right? At that point, it is extremely important for everyone to acknowledge it was tragic that one innocent person had to die. That no one should put any illusion on themselves like, oh, well, he deserved it because he was a jerk. Like, no. Okay, unless he actually tried to murder you first, maybe.
Which the criminal dude did. He was on death row by the Klingon Empire for murdering a whole bunch of people, yeah. And then he tried to murder Quark.
Yeah, right. But
Sisko had to buy him off.
Right.
In fact, that was like one of the key turning moral points where you started realizing, oh, this is not exactly a good thing, because Quark was saying, I'd like to thank you, Captain, because you have given me new hope that the Ferengi ideals can exist everywhere. Every man has his price, and this, you have paid your price to me.
Yeah.
Thank you, Captain. And when Quark is complimenting you, that's when you should stop doing whatever it is you're doing, generally.
Yeah.
But in this case, the price, everything he has ever known and loved, is on the line, because some jackass in the Gamma Quadrant decided, yeah, you know what? Fuck those guys. They can't shapeshift. Fuck them.
More or less.
Yeah. So he's still conflicted, and this is conveyed throughout the episode.
Yeah. As I was, saying that it's very important to count the cost. It's very important to say, I wish I was wiser. Like right now, I wish I'd be so smart I could figure out a non-lethal way for them to get rid of the Dominion problem and not do anything unsavory. I haven't figured that out. But, theoretically there's an answer out there, and I missed it because I wasn't smart enough. And the same thing with the people. Oh, maybe we could, if we expended less energy or something, we could have lived longer without killing anybody. I don't know, but it's a tragedy. And you should go apologize to that person's family if they want to talk to you at all, which they probably don't. But if they do, you should try and make amends. You should, pay insurance. You know what I mean? Like, you should try to support the family members that now have to grieve if they're willing to accept your money, which they
if
might
they
not
have
be.
family members.
If they have family members. You know what I mean, though? Like, put up a freaking statue of this guy. Make it clear. It was tragic. Because then, some other time, there may be a spot where you want to sacrifice one to save others, and you can actually save everyone. But you're not thinking about that solution because you've already moved down to a lower standard. Especially if you use racism or any form of intolerance to justify yourself. Like, oh, he was black, it's okay. And then it's like, furthermore okay to murder black people.
He wasn't using racism.
I know. I'm making more general points about morality. And I would say this. Because although that initial criminal guy was on, due to be executed, and let's just assume it was for a good cause and he was really guilty, that diplomat did not deserve to be executed, did he? He didn't deserve that. So, eventually, you can't do this immediately because it would screw up the whole war, but eventually, you go to his kids or his grandkids or whatever and say, yeah, we killed him, we're sorry. And that is freaking hard to do, but you have to do it because at that point, there aren't 900 million lives on the line. 900 billion lives on the line.
Nearly a trillion.
There is only your own pride. And you know what? No, you will sacrifice your pride in order to attempt to make amends. And you will recognize that something unsavory has happened here. And you will say, I am sorry, I did not find a better way. Very important.
Well, wow.
Yeah.
Did not expect that.
I've got plenty of lectures in my head.
I don't really know what to say to that. Yes, the death of a Romulan senator and a criminal is tragic, but so is the cost of war.
Yeah. And we recognize the tragedy of war, don't we?
Yes.
He is one more casualty among them, and that's sad, and we should recognize that. You don't get to discount him because it's unpleasant to you. You get to discount him publicly for a little bit because it would screw up the war effort. But eventually, when it doesn't make a difference otherwise...
Make it sealed records so that they're only open like 150 years
something
in the future.
like that, yeah. But eventually
when everyone
it has
is
to
dead.
Come out. Eventually, you have
the
to come back
truth
to
will
that.
have to come out eventually. But at the moment that he made that decision, at that moment, he was not thinking about what will happen 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years in the future if I do this. He was thinking that right now, there are people that I have known since my days at the academy, and they are flying starships into the jaws of death.
Yep.
And they know that, yes, they will die horribly and in horrible agony, but their sacrifice will buy a few more seconds for that refugee shuttle that is escaping the gravity of the planet.
Babylon 5, but okay.
What? No.
Yeah, that was totally... the president is making that speech, and she goes, every ship that goes out there will buy us a few more seconds before you...
No, I swear to God, I was not channeling Babylon 5
okay,
there.
fine.
Every ship, a few more seconds. If I can hold them back for just a minute more, our troops will be ready to make another advance across the lines and hit them in a shipyard. For every hour that I can hold the line... My people survive one more hour.
Yep. That's important.
That is what Commander Sisko was thinking in that moment.
I know. But I'm just...
Well, yes, I'm getting my thoughts out there on why
Fine.
You got your chance to...
I did.
That is what Commander Sisko was thinking. Because it's all... He made this awesome speech earlier. That if you look outside the Federation headquarters... Earth is a paradise, and it's really, really easy to be a saint in paradise. But out here on the frontier, on the front lines of this war against a galaxy-spanning empire, you are not... Being a saint is not always an option. Sometimes you are forced to do unsavory things. Because, yes, for the greater good is a phrase that has become so evil and misaligned.
Misused, yeah.
But sometimes, as Ambassador Spock once said, before he gave his life for the cause, the needs of the many sometimes do outweigh the needs of the few.
Yeah.
That does not mean we discount the sacrifices of the few. That does not mean we forget about them. That does not mean we make that sacrifice lightly. And it is clear in the episode that he does not take that sacrifice lightly.
Yeah, that's what I liked about it.
He couldn't even admit to himself that, yes, I can deal with it. Or at least he does, and then immediately says, no, I really can't.
He says, delete that message.
Yeah. But in the end, Sisko made a decision as a commander of a space station on the front line of the greatest war the Federation has ever known. Towards the end of the war, the Dominion actually conquered Beta Z. It wasn't some no-name planet like
No-name planet Zoid.
Zoid 3, home of the Chick-Cocklozoids. It wasn't like some random astronomical point you check off on a checklist. This was Beta Z. This is a planet that has been established in Star Trek before. Home of several major and recurring characters, including Deanna Troi and Laxwana Troi.
Yeah.
And in the end, they were within range to strike at most of the Federation's major colonies.
Mm-hmm.
Earth, Vulcan, Andoria, many others. So this is the kind of pressure that Sisko is under. His Federation, the thing he has fought and sacrificed so much for, the thing that he has watched weather the storm of the Borg, the Borg, and the Romulans, and the Klingons, and so many other threats, is being taken apart by this group that will kill his son, that will kill his father, kill his friends and family, his girlfriend.
Did he have a girlfriend at that point?
Yes, he had a girlfriend.
Oh, okay.
But, because there was a war going on.
Yeah,
and expand upon it.
Yeah.
So I understand why he did those things.
Yeah.
Do I approve of it? That's harder to say. Because I don't know if it was the right thing to do. Do we take a path where we make unsavory decisions in order to stave off annihilation? And if we do, what does that say about our society? That when the going gets tough, we abandon our principles? Or are our principles just something that we should stick to, even if it means that following them would mean the total extinction and extermination of all that we hold dear? Which is it? Because those are questions that I can't answer. I'm not a soldier. I'm not on the front lines. I'm a kid from Chicago. I can't answer those questions. I can think about them. Were I in Sisko's position, thinking of this as purely a numbers game, 2 lives versus 900 billion.
Yeah.
That is a trade I could make. But would it be worth it? Yes, it would be worth it.
But isn't it sad that our best option happens to be so dark as that?
We have to lie, to cheat, to steal.
As far as we know.
Give away weapons of potentially... To give away the equivalent of weapons-grade uranium to some person we don't know.
Yeah.
An entire star empire will no doubt demand the blood of myself and my descendants for what I have done today. But at the same time, this ensures that I will have descendants in the future. That they won't be slaves to some gelatinous blob monster living on the other side of the galaxy. This ensures that my father can live just a little while longer to perfect that Cajun recipe that he's always talking about. That my friends that I see every day on the promenade, they'll be able to do the things they love. So is it worth it, what Sisko did?
I guess the question there is, what else are we defending aside from lives? And you're defending principle. And the idea of defending principle is that as hard as it may be to bear in the short term, in the long term it is somehow better, which is often the case in terms of principle. But when it comes to the death of practically everybody, you kind of wonder if it's worth quite that much. Weighty questions.
Indeed. Is it any wonder why this episode has aroused so much love and so much hate in one single showing?
I go for the love side. They're taking on very, very important themes. And if it's against Gene Roddenberry's vision, well, that's okay, because we can expand beyond his vision.
Gene Roddenberry wasn't always right.
Yeah.
And furthermore, the weakest bonds are those that are not tested. If we simply accept his words as gospel, and we never test them, never question if they're the right thing to do in an ever-changing galactopolitical situation, that we never change. One advertisement that I once saw was actually more potent than I first thought upon looking back. It was for Robotech Battlecry. It said, in order to survive, you must change into a warrior. In order to defend yourself, you must change into a fighter. In order to last, you must change yourself. Change or die. So, yes, the ideals of Roddenberry are very nice. They are high-minded ideals of peace and exploration. But under that same token, if we limit ourselves to the ideals posited by Gene Roddenberry, and we never deviate from them, then we have become stagnant.
Possibly. It all depends on what sort of deviation you allow. Because stagnancy in one case may be better than deviating towards a more negative perspective or a negative sense of being. We talk about the need to become a warrior in order to survive. Perhaps in war, yes. But be careful to always be aware, I'd say. It's all too easy to come up with, in order to survive, in order to get by, in order to whatever, we must adopt this notion. And it may be, that in times of war, especially when your side is highly justified, really only when your side is justified and the other side isn't, that you may have to be a warrior in order to defend these important things that deserve your defense. But in times of peace, or when peace becomes reasonably possible, it may be important to drop the warrior and to become the diplomat, to become something else, more suited to those times, always changing in accordance with a higher principle, in accordance with a higher goal. If you lose sight of things, you can be stuck in the wrong approach. So that's tricky too. And in fact, I'd like to see that sometime. How about a warlike people facing peace? How about the warriors who want to cling to their old ways because they don't know how to live any other way?
That would be Star Trek 6.
That would be Star Trek 6. I haven't seen it yet.
Really? I thought I watched it with you.
No, we watched 2, 3, and 4.
Well, I know what we're doing next time.
Okay, next time is apparently Star Trek 6, or maybe something else. We'll find out. But eventually Star Trek 6.
Well, I mean, it's time to get together, but...
Yeah.
Whatever.
So, no easy answers. And I am not somehow the authority on everything. This is me musing.
You like to pretend you are, though.
And I may very well change my mind next week about some detail or other. Who knows? Yep. But thank you for listening.
Yeah, well, that's our thoughts on was Sisko right or not in the Pale Moonlight. I'm Sith King.
And I'm Sonic Sons.
And we're signing off.